Go to any pharmacy in America right now, and you will find an entire aisle dedicated to things that didn't exist 50 years ago. Syrups in neon colors with names nobody can pronounce, pills sealed in blister packs, creams in tubes with warnings printed in a font so small you need reading glasses to find out what you're not supposed to do. And at the checkout counter, somebody is going to ring up $60, $70, $80 worth of products, and they are going to go home and feel better. Maybe, probably, in a few days. But here is what that pharmacy aisle does not have. It does not have a woman who has seen everything. A woman who watched her own mother and her mother's mother move through this world healing people with what grew in the yard and what sat on the kitchen shelf. It does not have a woman who could look at your face when you walked through the door and know before you said a single word whether you needed a poultice or a tea or just a firm hand on the back of your neck and some firm words in your ear. That woman was Big Mama, and she kept the whole family alive. Not just alive, upright, moving, functional, in a time when the nearest hospital might not have let you through the front door, when the doctor's fee was more than a week's wages, when the pharmacist downtown didn't necessarily serve your kind. In that time, there was a woman in an apron with a cast-iron pot and knowledge that went back further than anyone could trace. And she used it, every single day. These remedies are nearly gone now. The children who watched Big Mama measure out her roots and her vinegars grew up and moved away, and the knowledge moved with her when she left this earth, and not enough of it was written down. What remains lives in the memories of folks who are getting older. People who still remember the smell of a mustard plaster. People who know what a slice of fatback on the chest is supposed to do in the middle of the night. People who grew up in houses where you didn't call a doctor for a cold. You called Big Mama. Today we are bringing 30 of those remedies back home. Hey family, I'm James, and today we are going somewhere that most people have forgotten to go. Back to the kitchen. Back to the medicine cabinet that wasn't a cabinet at all, but a pantry, a garden, a knowledge passed from woman to woman across generations of Black American life. Now, before we get into it, if this is your first time sitting with me, do me a kindness. Hit that subscribe button down below. We are building a community here. People who remember, and people who want to remember. So go on, subscribe, ring that bell, and let's get into it. Now here is how I want to do this today. Because the world we live in now is very different from the world Big Mama knew. So for each one of these remedies, I want to hold them up side by side. What we do now, and what they did then. Not because one is always better than the other, but because when you see what we traded away, you might just understand what we lost. Number 1. You wake up today with a chest cold, and here is what you do. You go to the drugstore. You buy a bottle of something that says chest congestion on the label. You pour yourself 2 tablespoons and you go back to bed. That is the ritual of now. Back in those days, Big Mama didn't wait for you to wake up. She was already in the kitchen. By the time she heard you coughing in the next room, she had the pot on the stove and the Vicks on the counter and a clean cloth warming on the back of the chair. She made what she called a mustard plaster. Yellow mustard, the kind that came in the jar, French's or whatever they had, mixed with a little flour and water, spread thick on a piece of flannel cloth and laid warm against your chest while you lay flat on your back. The heat pulled the congestion loose. The smell alone could clear a passageway, and you would be asleep before she finished humming. Back in those days, the remedy came to you. You didn't have to go anywhere. That was just how it was done. Number 2. Today when a child has a fever, the first thing the parent does is reach for the children's Tylenol. That pink syrup in the little bottle. And that is not wrong. But it is a very new instinct, historically speaking. Big Mama brought the fever down with an onion, specifically with onion slices laid on the bottom of the feet, then thick socks pulled over them, and the child put to bed. Now I know how that sounds in 2026. I know. But child, let me tell you something. There are people in this room, people watching this right now, whose fevers broke that way when they were 7 years old, and they never forgot it. The onion draws, see? That was the word she used. It draws the heat out. And whether that is chemistry or faith or some combination of the two that science hasn't figured out how to measure yet, it worked often enough that the practice stayed in the family for generations. She would also rub the feet with a little camphor oil and wrap them warm. By morning, the child's forehead was cool. Number 3. If you have a sore throat today, the pharmacist will sell you a lozenge or a gargle solution with a label full of active ingredients. You will use it 3 times a day as directed. Big Mama gargled with warm salt water and apple cider vinegar. That was it. Salt water she made herself. A teaspoon of table salt in a glass of the warmest water you could stand. A splash of vinegar from the bottle she kept under the sink, the kind with the mother in it, cloudy and dark, that she bought from a man who made it out past the county line. She didn't call it a remedy. She called it common sense. The salt pulled the inflammation. The vinegar broke down what was growing in there that shouldn't have been, and she would stand over you while you gargled to make sure you did it right, because Big Mama had no patience for shortcuts where health was concerned. Gargle 3 times. Spit. Drink a little warm water with honey. Go sit down. Number 4. Earaches. Today send families to the pediatrician. Ear infections mean antibiotics. The appointment, the copay, the prescription, the pharmacy. That whole chain of events. Back in those days, Big Mama warmed a little olive oil. Just a few drops, brought to body temperature in a small spoon held near the stove burner, never too hot. She tested it on her wrist, the same way she tested milk for a baby. She tilted your head and let those drops fall into the aching ear, then tucked a piece of warm cotton loosely in the opening. Not to seal it, just to hold the warmth. Then she had you lie on your side with the sore ear facing up, and she would sit with you. Sometimes she prayed over that ear. Sometimes she just sat quietly. And the oil would work its way down, and the warmth would do what warmth does, and most of the time the pain eased before you fell asleep. Warm olive oil for an earache. That was just how it was done. Number 5. For headaches, today we reach for aspirin, ibuprofen, Tylenol, Excedrin. Any one of 4 or 5 white tablets sitting in a bottle on the bathroom shelf. Big Mama pressed a brown paper bag soaked in apple cider vinegar against your forehead and had you lie still. Now that brown bag remedy is one of the older ones, and it goes back further than anyone in my family could trace. My grandmother said her grandmother's grandmother did it, which puts it somewhere before the Civil War, and well into a time when there were no pharmacies available to black people in much of the South at any price. The vinegar draws the heat and changes the chemistry at the skin's surface. The coolness of the wet paper calms the throbbing. And lying flat in a dark room while Big Mama's hand rested on your shoulder, that part mattered too. See, the healing was never just physical with her. It was the whole person. Always the whole person. Number 6. For an upset stomach today, you open a cabinet and you choose between pink liquid bismuth or antacid tablets, or maybe a ginger chew from the health food store if you're feeling fancy. Big Mama made ginger tea. Real ginger. A piece of the fresh root, pale and fibrous, that she kept in a small bag in the pantry, cut into thin coins with a paring knife, dropped into a pot of water and brought slow to a boil, simmered 10 minutes, strained into a cup and sweetened with raw honey. The whole house would smell like it. And it was not a gentle smell. Ginger is assertive. It has an opinion. It will announce itself from 2 rooms away. But you drank it, and you drank it hot. And by the time that cup was empty, your stomach had settled. She sometimes added a little peppermint leaf from the bundle she kept drying near the kitchen window. Between the ginger and the peppermint, there was not a stomach complaint known to man that did not stand down. Folks don't do this anymore, and that's a shame. Number 7. Constipation today has a pharmaceutical aisle of its own. Fiber supplements, stool softeners, laxatives of every kind and gentleness level, all boxed in cheerful packaging. Big Mama gave you prunes and castor oil, and she was not cheerful about it. She was matter of fact. If you were stopped up, the remedy was clear, and the remedy was old. Prunes, dried, dark, wrinkled, soaked overnight in warm water, eaten in the morning before anything else. If the prunes alone did not solve the problem, then castor oil entered the picture, and castor oil was not a friend. It was a remedy that meant business. She measured it in a small spoon. She handed it to you, and the expression on her face communicated clearly that there was no negotiation to be had. You drank it, and then nature handled the rest with efficiency. That castor oil had been on that shelf since before you were born, and it would be there long after you left for school. It did what it did. Number 8. For a burn in the kitchen today, a splash of hot grease, a moment of inattention at the stove, the instruction from modern medicine is to run it under cool water for 20 minutes and apply a burn ointment. Big Mama applied aloe vera, not from a bottle at the beauty supply store. From the actual plant, the live one she kept on the windowsill above the kitchen sink in a clay pot that had a crack in the side sealed with dried soil. She broke a stem off that plant, split it lengthwise with her thumbnail, and laid the inside of it, cool, clear, slick as wet glass, directly on the burn. The relief was immediate, not gradual, immediate. That gel lowered the heat at the skin's surface in a way that was almost shocking, and she would tear a strip from an old cotton sheet, white and worn soft from washing, and wrap it loose to hold the aloe in place. By the next morning the burn was quiet. She tended that aloe plant the way she tended everything she needed, carefully, without drama, with the understanding that it would return what you gave it. Number 9. For a cough today, there are entire shelves. Suppressants, expectorants, nighttime formulas, daytime formulas, honey lemon varieties, cherry-flavored syrups. Big Mama made an onion and honey cough syrup from scratch. She peeled and sliced a large yellow onion, layered it in a jar with raw honey between each layer, sealed the jar, and let it sit on the counter for several hours until the onion had wept its juice into the honey and the whole thing had become a dark, amber-colored liquid. 1 tablespoon at a time, morning and night. It sounds unusual. I will not pretend it was delicious. But the onion has properties that have since been confirmed by people in white coats. Sulfuric compounds that fight infection, enzymes that thin mucus, and the raw honey coats the throat and brings the inflammation down. My grandmother told me she took a spoonful of that syrup every winter of her childhood and she never missed a day of school from a cough. I believe her. Number 10. For athlete's foot today, there is an antifungal cream at every drugstore, over the counter, in and out, in 5 minutes. Back in those days, Big Mama treated it with a foot bath, a wide basin, the same tin basin she used for everything, filled with warm water, a strong pour of apple cider vinegar, and sometimes a handful of dried red pepper flakes if the infection was particularly stubborn. You soaked your feet in that basin for 20 minutes, twice a day, and while you soaked, she might talk to you or she might be quiet, depending on what you needed. The vinegar changed the pH of the skin's surface to something the fungus could not survive in. The red pepper added a heat that made the feet inhospitable. It worked slowly, but it worked completely. And after the soak, she dried your feet herself, thoroughly, between each toe, because she understood that dampness was where the problem lived, and dampness was where you had to attack it. Now, before we keep going, family, I want to stop for a moment and ask you something, because this is a conversation, not just a list. Tell me in the comments, what is the one remedy your big mama or your grandmother or your auntie used on you as a child that you still think about? Maybe you've tried it on your own kids. Maybe you think it sounds too old-fashioned to try. Whatever it is, tell me. I read every single comment, and I promise you, someone else watching right now had the exact same thing done to them, and they have been wondering if they were the only one. You are not the only one. Drop it down below. Let's bring this knowledge back together. Number 11. Today, a child who can't sleep gets melatonin gummies in a bottle shaped like a bear, warm chamomile tea bags from the grocery store, white noise machines from Amazon. Big Mama gave the child warm milk with a small piece of butter melted into it and a dusting of nutmeg on the top. Not a lot of nutmeg, She was careful with the nutmeg. She knew it was potent. And she used it the way she used everything, with precision, with respect for the thing. The butter and the milk of fat and warmth moving into a child's stomach at the end of the day. The nutmeg has sedative properties that have been used medicinally in traditional medicine for centuries before any of us were born. And she would bring it to you in a specific cup, not a random cup, a particular one, always the same, white with a small blue flower near the handle, and the ritual of the cup was part of the remedy. Your body knew, when you see the cup, it is time to sleep. That association alone is medicine. Number 12. For joint pain and arthritis today, people are prescribed anti-inflammatories, NSAIDs, pain management regimens. Some of them are on those medications every day of their lives. Big Mama rubbed those joints with liniment she mixed herself. Sometimes it was a store-bought base she enhanced. Bengay or Sloan's liniment was available, and she might start with one of those and add to it. But her version added turpentine in small measure, and she was very exact about the turpentine because it demanded exactness. Just enough to cut through to the tissue underneath. Just enough to bring the blood rushing to the surface and carry the heat into the joint. She would work that liniment in with her thumbs, slow and firm, in the same direction, always toward the heart, because she had been taught that direction mattered. And then she wrapped the joint in flannel, always flannel, not cotton, because flannel held the heat longer. And the person sat near the stove or near the fire and let the liniment work. Number 13. Skin rashes and irritation today mean hydrocortisone cream, antihistamines, the advice to see a dermatologist if it persists. Back in those days, Big Mama applied a poultice of plantain leaf, not the plantain you fry in oil, a different plant entirely, the broad-leafed plantain that grows low to the ground, that you have probably walked past 100 times without knowing its name, that grows in every vacant lot and along every unpaved road in the south. She bruised a fresh leaf between her hands until it turned dark and began to weep its juice, and she laid it flat against the irritated skin and wrapped it in place with a strip of cloth. It pulled. It drew the inflammation to the surface and cooled it there. She had learned this from her own grandmother, and she used it without apology and without explanation to anyone who questioned it, because the results were visible and the results were real. Number 14. For gas and bloating today, there is a pink liquid. There are peppermint soft gels. There are gas relief strips you put on your tongue. Big Mama brewed fennel seed tea. The fennel seeds went into a small cloth she made from a square of cheesecloth, tied at the corners, dropped into boiling water and steeped for 15 minutes until the water turned a pale gold. And the whole kitchen smelled like black licorice in the best possible way. She strained it, sweetened it with a little honey, and you drank it slowly. Not in gulps, slowly, because the body receives things better when you show them patience. Fennel relaxes the smooth muscle of the digestive tract. It releases the trapped gas and quiets the spasm. She knew this not from any book, but from the accumulated intelligence of women who had been healing people with what was available to them for longer than any of us can account for. Number 15.
For insect bites today, there is hydrocortisone, there is calamine lotion in that recognizable pink bottle, there is Benadryl cream. Big Mama rubbed the bite immediately with the inside of a banana peel. Right then, right there, no hesitation. If she was within reach of a banana, she would take it apart and press the inner surface of the peel, white and slick, directly onto the welt and hold it there. The enzymes in that peel have a genuine anti-inflammatory effect on the skin.
The cooling is real. Then she might follow with a paste made from baking soda and a few drops of water, mixed thick in the palm of her hand and daubed on with her finger, just thick enough to stay in place and dry to a chalky crust that took the heat and the itch down to nothing. She never once said the word remedy. She never once called it medicine. She just did it, the way she did everything, like the knowledge was in her hands, and her hands knew what to do. Now we are getting into the deeper remedies, family. The ones that go back the furthest. The ones that were already old when Big Mama learned them. Number 16. for a wound that wouldn't close, or a sore that kept weeping. Today you go to urgent care and get it cleaned and bandaged properly and sent home with a prescription for antibiotics. Big Mama packed it with sugar, pure cane sugar, pressed firmly into the wound and covered. This is one that sounds like it could not possibly be true, but hospitals in some parts of the world use this today. High concentrations of sugar create an environment in a wound that bacteria cannot survive in. It draws the moisture out of bacterial cells and kills them. She didn't know the mechanism. She knew the outcome. She had watched it work too many times to doubt it. The wound closed cleaner and faster with the sugar than it did with nothing, and she was a woman who respected what worked. Number 17. For high blood pressure today, and Lord knows this is the epidemic of our community, there are medications that people take every day of their lives, pills that they will be on for decades. Back in those days, Big Mama monitored it with garlic, a raw clove of garlic, eaten in the morning, every morning, with breakfast, for the rest of your life once a certain age was reached. She chewed it, or she chopped it fine and swallowed it with water. The smell was not anyone's favorite. Nobody in the house was enthusiastic about it. But garlic contains a lysine, which dilates blood vessels and helps regulate pressure. And she knew this not as a fact with a chemical name attached, but as a truth she had watched play out in person, in the bodies of people she loved. My granddaddy ate a clove of garlic every morning of his adult life. He worked 6 days a week and never once complained. He lived to be 83 years old, and his pressure was controlled without a single prescription. Number 18. For urinary tract infections today, there is a specific antibiotic, a specific number of days, and a very specific instruction about cranberry juice that your doctor may or may not mention. Big Mama had the cranberry juice instruction before the doctors did. Not the sweetened, diluted cocktail from a can. The real juice, tart enough to make you wince, that she obtained from a woman who processed it herself, or from a jar she had put up in the fall. She made you drink it in quantity, glass after glass through the course of the day, along with water, because she understood that flushing was part of the treatment, and she added to the water regime a tea made from corn silk. Corn silk. The pale golden threads you pull off an ear of corn and typically throw away, dried and steeped. It makes a tea that has diuretic properties and soothes the urinary tract in a way that women have known about and used for a very long time. She combined these two things, and she was serious about the volume of liquid, and she stood over you until she was satisfied you were drinking enough. Number 19. For anemia, a condition the community deals with significantly, today there is an iron supplement in a brown bottle at the pharmacy. Big Mama fed you liver and onions and blackstrap molasses. The liver from the butcher, cooked in the cast iron pan with onions until the whole kitchen was aromatic and rich and unmistakable. Beef liver, which contains more bioavailable iron than almost any supplement on the market. She knew what it was for because women in her time and in the generations before her were attentive to blood, attentive to tiredness, attentive to the pale gums and the pallor under the skin that signaled the blood was thin. And the blackstrap molasses, the dark, heavy, bitter-sweet stuff at the bottom of the processing, taken by the spoonful in warm water every morning. It is loaded with iron and minerals, and the people who use it still swear by it. She never called it a supplement. She called it good food, and the line between food and medicine in her kitchen was a line she never drew. Number 20. For toothaches today, people call the dentist, and they take ibuprofen in the meantime, and they wait. Big Mama applied clove oil, a drop of it, placed directly on the aching tooth and the surrounding gum with a small piece of cotton, and the pain dropped so fast it was almost startling. Clove oil contains eugenol, which is a natural anesthetic and antiseptic, and dentists used it in their practices for generations before synthetic alternatives arrived. She kept a small dark bottle of it in the back of the medicine shelf, and she brought it out for toothaches, and she brought it out for nothing else. She was economical with it, because it was not easy to come by, but when it was needed, it was never not available. That bottle was always there. And the relief it brought was so reliable that the moment you smelled it, Even years later, even decades later, your jaw would relax slightly because your body remembered. Number 21. For a child with worms, and this is something the modern world has largely forgotten, was once a common problem, particularly in communities without reliable sanitation. Today there is an anti-parasitic medication. Big Mama administered pumpkin seeds and wormwood tea. The seeds, eaten raw and whole in quantity over several days, contain a compound called cucurbitacin that paralyzes intestinal parasites. The wormwood tea, a strong, bitter brew from the dried herb, was used across cultures worldwide for exactly this purpose. She added a dose of castor oil at the end of the protocol, which cleared out whatever the seeds and tea had dealt with. It was a complete treatment cycle, 3 days, consistent, not pleasant, but effective. And she knew the signs that told her when it was needed, the grinding of teeth at night, the restlessness, the particular kind of stomach complaint that was different from an ordinary stomach upset. She read the body the way other people read a book. Number 22. For a sty on the eye today, the internet will tell you to apply a warm compress multiple times a day and see an ophthalmologist if it doesn't resolve. Big Mama used a gold ring. She took her wedding band off her finger, warmed it in her closed palm for a long moment, then pressed it gently against the sty in a circular motion, not rubbing, pressing and releasing, pressing and releasing. The gold metal, warmed to body temperature, applied in a particular rhythm. She had been told to do this by her own mother, and her mother had been told the same. Whether the mechanism was the warmth or something in the gold itself, or purely the ritual of care applied consistently, the styes resolved. They always resolved. And she did it with such calm authority that the relief started before she even touched you, because in her hands, you were already healed. Number 23. For eczema and dry skin conditions today, there are prescription creams and over-the-counter moisturizers and an entire skincare industry generating billions of dollars. Back in those days, Big Mama used shea butter, pure and unrefined, mixed with a little coconut oil and sometimes a few drops of lavender she had dried herself and pressed into an oil. She made it in a small jar that she kept on the dresser in her bedroom, and she applied it to the affected skin herself. Never handed it to you and told you to do it. She did it herself, slowly, deliberately, with the same care she applied to everything. Shea butter, unrefined, still contains all the fatty acids and vitamins and anti-inflammatory compounds in their natural state before the industry processes them out and puts them back in synthetic form and charges you accordingly. Hers did not smell like a product. It smelled like something that had come from the earth, which is exactly what it was. Number 24. For anxiety and nerves today, and this is its own epidemic in our community and every community, there are prescription medications, and there are therapy apps, and there are meditation podcasts. Big Mama made chamomile tea and sat with you. That is the whole remedy, and I want you to hear both parts of it equally. The chamomile, dried flowers steeped in hot water for several minutes, strained with honey, has been used as a mild anxiolytic for thousands of years. It binds to the same receptors in the brain that benzodiazepines bind to, only gently, only quietly. And the second part, she sat with you. She did not hand you the cup and leave the room. She sat. She might talk, or she might not. But her presence was medicinal. The calm she carried in her body was transferable. You absorbed it through proximity, through the sound of her breathing, through the weight of her in the chair across from you. We have forgotten the therapeutic power of presence. We have outsourced it to screens and subscriptions, and we have forgotten what it cost nothing and healed everything. Number 25. For a cold in the chest that had settled deep and would not move, today you take decongestants. You use a humidifier. You push fluids. Big Mama made a pot of pepper pot soup. Every family's version was a little different. Hers had pork neck bones and okra and whatever vegetables needed using up, and a quantity of black pepper and red pepper that would make a grown man's forehead sweat from 3 feet away. She made you eat it hot, steam rising off the surface, leaning over the bowl so the vapor came up into your face. The pepper compounds, capsaicin, piperine, are bronchodilators. They open the airways. They break up congestion. The heat of the liquid brings down inflammation. The steam delivers the compounds directly to where they need to go. And the soup itself, the collagen from those neck bones, the minerals from the vegetables, fed the immune system, while the pepper did the other work. She made it in the big pot, enough for everybody. Because in her house, if one person had it, she treated the whole house. Number 26. For a child with croup, that harsh, barking cough that sounds alarming and comes on in the night, today the emergency guidance is a steamy bathroom or cold night air and sometimes a hospital if it's bad enough. Back in those days, Big Mama used eucalyptus. She kept a bottle of eucalyptus oil on the medicine shelf, and she added it to a pot of steaming water, not boiling, steaming, and had you lean over it with a towel tent over your head, breathing slowly and carefully for 10 minutes. The eucalyptus vapors are a genuine bronchodilator. They open the airway, loosen what is sitting in the tubes, calm the spasm of the croup cough. She also rubbed eucalyptus mixed with a little lard on your chest and your back before bed, and the vapors came up off your skin all night while you slept. The whole bedroom smelled like a medicine that was working. You woke up breathing easier. That was not an accident. Number 27. For cuts and minor infections today, you clean with hydrogen peroxide, apply neosporin from the tube, cover with a Band-Aid. Big Mama applied honey, raw honey, dark and thick, from a jar she kept in the pantry that came from a beekeeper she knew by name. She spread it directly on the wound, covered it with a piece of cloth, and left it. Raw honey has antibacterial properties that have been documented extensively. It creates hydrogen peroxide as a byproduct of contact with wound fluid. It has a pH that bacteria cannot live in. It draws moisture from bacterial cells, and it creates a moist wound environment that promotes healing without scarring. Surgeons in parts of the world that cannot access manufactured antibiotics still use honey on wounds. And Big Mama knew this in 1958 in a town with one stoplight because the knowledge had been there for generations, waiting to be used by the people who needed it most. Number 28. For back pain today, the protocol is anti-inflammatories, ice or heat depending on the stage, and a physical therapist if it persists. Big Mama made a clay poultice. Specifically, red clay from the earth outside the house, mixed with a little water to a thick paste, sometimes with turpentine added in small measure, spread on cloth and applied warm to the back. Red clay is mineral-rich. It absorbs heat and then releases it slowly. The drawing and warming effect on deep tissue is real, and it has been documented in therapeutic contexts across many cultures. She applied it, and she wrapped you in flannel, and she told you to lie still for an hour, and she meant it. An hour flat on your back, the clay doing its work, the heat moving into the muscle and releasing the spasm. And then she wiped it off with a warm, wet cloth, slowly, and the skin underneath was pink and warm and the back was quieter. My grandfather used this remedy until the end of his life, and he never stopped believing in it. Number 29. For depression, and this is the one that matters most to me, family, because our community has suffered a long time in silence around this. Today there is a doctor and a diagnosis and a medication and a process that can take months. Big Mama knew nothing about clinical depression as a category, but she knew grief, she knew despair, she knew when a person had gone quiet inside in a way that was different from ordinary quiet. And her remedy was not a tea and it was not a poultice. Her remedy was assignment. She gave the person something to do, something physical, something that produced a result, something that engaged the hands. You shelled the peas. You helped her wash the windows. You sat at the table and you snapped the green beans and you filled a colander with something that was going to feed people. She made you useful, not because she didn't understand what you were carrying, but because she understood that usefulness is a medicine, that the hands that are working are hands that are not lost, that the body in motion tends to pull the spirit up behind it. She never called it a remedy. She called it getting up and helping, and it worked more times than I can count. Number 30. And this one, family. This one is the last one, and I want you to hear it carefully. For everything today, for every ache and every worry and every ailment, there is a product, there is a pill, there is an app, a subscription, a professional to be consulted, a device to be purchased. The entire architecture of modern American health is built around a transaction. You feel something, you buy something. The feeling resolves or it doesn't, and either way, the transaction is complete. Back in those days, Big Mama's first remedy for everything was laying of hands. Before the tea was brewed, and before the poultice was applied, and before the oil was warmed, she put her hands on you, on your forehead, on your back, on your shoulders, on whatever was hurting. She held it. She breathed. If she was a praying woman, she prayed, quietly, in her own words, not the church words, the private words she used when it was just her and God and the person who needed help. If she was not a praying woman, she was still a presence, a warm, certain, unafraid presence. Her hands communicated something that no pharmacology has ever successfully bottled. I am here. I am not afraid of this. I have seen worse. You are going to be all right. And you believed her. Because she was not performing calm. She was not reading calm off a script. She was a woman who had lived through enough that her calm was earned, and she extended it to you freely, because that is what she had and that is what she gave. And the body received it. The nervous system registered it. The inflammation quieted a degree, the breathing slowed a degree, the fear stepped back a degree, because someone who had seen everything was present, and she was not afraid. That was the most powerful remedy she had. It did not require any ingredients at all. Family, let me tell you something. We have spent a lot of time tonight going through what Big Mama kept in her pantry, and in her garden, and in her hands. And I want to be clear, I'm not here to tell anyone to put down their medication or to skip the doctor. That is not what this is. There are things that modern medicine does that cannot be replaced, and I would not insult anyone's intelligence or health by suggesting otherwise. What I am saying is that we traded something real when we decided that healing was something that happened at a counter, from behind a prescription pad, in the hands of a professional we see for 15 minutes every few months. We traded knowledge. We traded presence. We traded the specific, irreplaceable intelligence of a woman who had watched this family's bodies her entire life and knew them the way she knew the floor plan of her own house, in the dark, without thinking, without looking, because she had lived in it long enough to know every corner. That knowledge is going quiet. The women who held it are aging. The ones who have already left us took so much with them that we will never fully account for the loss. What we have left are memories. Children who remember being healed. Grandchildren who remember watching it happen. Great-grandchildren who know only that something was being done with the herbs and the pots and the warm hands, but don't know what it was called or why it worked or how to do it themselves. This right here, this is something we need to bring back, not as nostalgia, not as a performance of the past, as actual living knowledge, passed from hand to hand the way it was always meant to be passed. Put it in a notebook. Teach it to your children the way Big Mama taught it to your mother. Keep the aloe on the windowsill. Keep the raw honey in the pantry. Know what the corn silk is for. Know the difference between the plantain in the yard and the weed you're about to pull up without a second thought. She kept this family alive. The least we can do is remember her methods. I'll see you next time, family.